Welcome to Soul Therapy with Chelle. I am Chelle Griffin and I practice as a soul doula. I combine therapeutic knowledge and lived experience with a healthy dose of spiritual exploration. Feel welcome to join me as we learn and grow together, exploring the magic and wonderment of experiencing life on earth as a spiritual being. Welcome back to Soul Therapy with Chelle, and we join Dr. Kathryn Theodosis for part 2 of our conversation about network spinal and how it benefits women in particular. I hope you really enjoyed this episode as much as I did. Can you share some of the experiences that you've noticed on the table from a physical perspective for our listeners to understand? With chiro, the chiro you do is not that manipulation of the spine. There is touch involved. You may use the activator for a more physical, I don't know the word here. Yeah. But the touch itself is so incredibly gentle. At times, I've barely been aware that the chiro's even in my field of energy and sort of get a surprise when I hear her walking away and just go, she was here. So can you explain for our listeners what those touch points could involve just in lay term?
So there's probably two easy and relatively quick analogies that I'd offer you. So the first thing that I would offer to your listeners and to yourself is when someone punches you in the arm, where do you generally feel that sensation?
Where they've connected with the punch.
Yeah, so that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Whereas if someone was to grab a feather and tickle your arm, what kind of response happened? Where do you feel that response in your body?
Like tingles.
Yeah. So it's more of a global experience. So often if someone's going to punch you in the arm, your immediate reaction is probably to put your hand over that point where they punched you and be like, ow, that hurt. Whereas when we grab a little feather and run it along your arm, yes, okay, there's probably going to be a sensation immediately where they're contacting you, but also often it's a more bodily sensation or a bodily shift of, oh, wow, there's something really light and gentle touching in through there. So that is one way of looking at it. The second would be if we liken the body and the spine and the nervous system to playing a guitar or a string instrument. So if you use a lot of force through the threads of a guitar, the quality of sound is really different. The quality is often quite harsh and it actually doesn't often evoke the nicest of sounds. Whereas if you use a lighter touch, the quality of sound is much more vibrant and much more open, and often the sound will last a lot longer comparatively to that hard, forceful, single strum. Okay. So when we're working with the nervous system with this light touch way, we're actually asking it to pay more attention, and we're asking it to invite greater depth of awareness about what's going on, not only at that point where we're contacting, but also through the rest of the point of the nervous system and body as well. Because those points that we are contacting through the spine, generally through the very base of the spine and sometimes through the neck as well, are points of open and resourcefulness. So energy richness is often the term that would be used from network spinal. So where there is resource and energy richness through the spine, we contact and ask the body to magnify, rather than most of the time with more that manual cracking style of adjustment. 9 times out of 10, the chiropractor's offering that adjustment at a place of fixation, where actually there's restriction and there's dis-ease rather than ease. Okay. Whereas with network spinal, we're looking for those points of ease.
And just enhancing and expanding.
Yeah, because what will happen is with those contacts, there's an innate response that builds through or opens up through the body and the system. And that innate response is this beautiful breath wave that begins to expand through the entirety of the spine. So if your listeners were to tune into their breath right in this moment, it's probably unlikely that it's spanning through the entirety of their spine. It's probably sitting either predominantly in their chest or maybe in their belly, or maybe a little bit of both. But for it to be feeling like it's stretching from the tip of your tailbone right up to the base of your skull, and then even beyond that, sometimes feeling like it's moving right into the soles of the feet and then right up into the fingertips and tip of the head is a whole nother way of connecting and feeling into your breath. So that is referred to as a breath wave or a respiratory wave through the body. And this respiratory wave is really fundamental at helping build that stability and safety that we mentioned earlier. As we work with the body and the nervous system and we've built that stability, there will be this secondary wave, the somatosychic wave that also begins to build. And this wave looks and feels more like an ocean wave moving in and out of the body. And this beautiful wave is really all about reorganization. So this wave allows for greater integration and greater efficiency and coherency to build through the body, and it's essentially offering space for change. There's been some really incredible research around these breath waves, because every now and again I can get it's rare now, but every now and again I may get the question of I feel like I'm just breathing bigger than normal. How can that do anything? And Donnie Epstein, the founder of Network Spinal, has done some pretty cool research where he's actually placed sensors along the spine that pick up the electrical conductivity of the paraspinal muscles, the muscles surrounding the spine. And he asked the participant to just manufacture this wave-like motion through his body. So to try and evoke what would look like to the untrained eye, that secondary wave, that somatosychic wave. And then he followed through and said, okay, you can just pause that now. And now I'm going to apply a contact and let's see how your body responds to that. And what they found was a dramatic difference in the readings of the manufactured or forced wave through the body that the participant was doing versus the wave that was instigated by that contact from the practitioner, because of the fact that we're offering a contact point to elicit a response versus someone just trying to create a response. And they found that the shift in the spinal readings showed that there was greater coherence in that secondary wave than there was in that first manufactured wave.
Wow. Yeah. I'm just trying to get my head around that. What springs to mind is just this image of like the melody of a song being played up and down your spine, and then the instrumental working its magic in the background and just building and creating that beautiful flow.
That's in many ways exactly what's going on, and that's one of the reasons why Dr. Donnie refers to it's referred to as, the sessions are referred to an entrainment, not an adjustment, because we're entraining the nervous system and the body to sing a different song or to play a different song. Yeah. And so that's where that analogy of a guitar comes into play a little bit more as well, because, with a guitar, if you tighten the little knobs right at the top, the sound that comes out of those strings is so different to when it's perfectly tuned. And then the same, if we loosen it all the way, the sound that comes through, if any, is also really different to when it's perfectly tuned. So we're really working with your nervous system and body to improve the song and that melody that is being played, but also ensuring that it is your song, not anyone else's, not, the song that your parents think you should play, or your teachers or your educators or your partner or your kids, or not anyone else's song, but yours. Your most authentic frequency and melody is what we're working to build, but also to have your nervous system feel and recognize, I'm actually safe to play that song.
Beautiful. And that's the purpose of it all, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's coming back to your most authentic self.
And how does that play out on the table with emotions? Like when you see, have you got some examples of when you see one of your clients on the table, and that activation is releasing emotions?
So emotions can arise through sessions, absolutely, but it can also arise in the following days after the entrainment as well. The body and nervous system continues to integrate for a good 2 to 3 days following the entrainment. So that window isn't necessarily just the time on the table that emotion can arise. Now, there are many different emotions that we humans can experience. And so the spectrum of emotions that can arise on or following an entrainment is so vast as a result. There have absolutely been times where there are clients who, whilst they're on the table or immediately after, have, tears move through and that emotion move through in that way. But there are also clients that experience joy on the table in terms of they begin to laugh and they have no idea why they have to, but they need to. And I have been in that category myself. And so it's not just the connection to, I think often when we think of healing work and particularly trauma work, we think that any emotion that's going to come up or all the emotions that are going to come up are going to be from the spectrum that we deem, the bad emotions, which they're not. It's just, it's just emotion. But for some of us, connecting into those really bright and joyous and vibrant emotions is actually what our nervous system and body has felt least safe to do. And so that's then when we bring that safety and we're building that stability, what often starts to arise is that connection to that joy, to that happiness, and recognizing that, oh wow, like I'm actually laughing, in this conversation with a friend, and it's coming from an authentic place. It's not forced. And that's always so beautiful to hear from my clients when they do experience that reconnection to joy, to, vibrancy and love and all those experiences, human experiences. In saying that, we can't have it one way. When it comes to our emotional spectrum, I need to find a new analogy because the young kids of the world aren't going to get this for much longer, but I'm hoping that your listeners will. If you can visualize the the volume bar that you would have seen on old school speakers, where as music plays and it becomes louder, it moves out from a center point out left and right. Yeah. I often liken the human emotional bandwidth to this, where in order to feel joy on one side, you have to feel the opposing sadness or grief or anger on the other side. So the more that we can allow ourselves to openly and safely lean into one side of that spectrum, the more then you'll be able to lean into the other. And that's just the reality of life. We can't experience the highs without the lows because you
That's
have no
why we're
context
here.
for it.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
that's the human
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah. And, often we find that those emotions are really bound in the body. So when we do start working with clients and they do start reconnecting to their body and the muscles start to release, their bony tissues start to soften and expand, the information that was once stored in there, that emotion that perhaps they didn't feel safe enough to experience, starts to surface. And so that's where you'll get that emotional unwinding taking place. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to know the exact story or reason to as why that emotion has been bunkered down, but that's not what it's about. It's not about the stories. Sometimes it is, absolutely, but it isn't always about the stories. It's just allowing yourself to express them rather than keep them held and trapped in your body.
The pennies just dropped for me. I practice as a Gestalt psychotherapist, so I work with the body somatically and experientially, not just straight talk therapy. But it's just occurred to me that for my own therapy, I do it on the table every week. That's my release, settling and resetting my nervous system and allowing my body to release, because like you, we sit with what's present energetically for our clients, and whilst we don't take them on, we're still space holding, and that requires energy and focus and can be quite taxing at times. So just the simple gift to myself of getting on the table every week just to re-energize, rejuvenate and replenish my system and release what is no longer mine, come back to my central core. I've just realized how much of a gift that is to me and how essential that is for me. When I first started network, I was like, I love that I've never really been a big fan of manipulation. I'll always preface going, you can't crack me. I don't crack well.
Yeah.
And it's because my nervous system was braced for impact and trauma 24/7. So it wasn't safe to allow for a manipulation to occur or an adjustment. Network, my body is the most supple and flexible and energetic it has been in a very long time, with barely any touch, or I've had the activator, a couple of times. So I guess for our listeners, if you are experiencing chiro, or maybe you have osteo or physio, find the modality that feels really energizing for you and healing for you. For me, network chiro, I'm a massive fan of, but it's not just a physical support. It's therapeutic and like deep soul care for our being, not just our human being. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, beautiful. Thank you so much for being here today with me, Kathryn. We've had a rough ride to get this conversation going.
It really happened.
It was always going to happen. It was absolutely aligned to happen. Just the timing wasn't right. And I think now I realize, because I've just had that penny drop of that's a form of therapy for me. And maybe there's listeners out here that need to hear that too. So for anyone who is Melbourne-based, Kathryn has a clinic in Oakley, and that's Bayside, I think.
Southeast, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just before you get to Bayside, yeah.
So I will put all of Kathryn's socials and website details in the show notes for you. And go give Network Chiro a try. I am such a fan. I'm gushing. But thank you so much for your time today.
Most welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for showing up for yourself by listening to Soul Therapy with Chelle. Feel welcome to subscribe to my podcast, share the pod with your friends, family, colleagues and neighbours. And please, if you are willing, I would absolutely love a 5-star review to give my little pod a boost in the algorithms. For further detail on how to work with me, please visit my website, www.chellegriffin.com, or find me on the socials. I hope you'll join me on my next episode. Till then, go gently and intentionally. With care, Chelle.